I think Flipkart was the first company I think who made a huge focus around customer experience. Convince your parents and your girlfriend and your wife for doing a startup. I think that's a big deal.
Thinking, oh my God, what is the startup? What are you doing? You have such a really nice big company available. Why would you not just work there and instead go and try to start your own company? These small companies, so much risk. But now they've seen something else.
Yeah.
They've tasted something else. They want that now.
My girlfriend was in the US and she's like, you either come now or I need to find another dude.
That is the why.
That is the why. Hey, hi. Welcome to In and Around Tech, a series where we speak about what has happened over the last 15 years in technology and what's going to happen over the next 10 years. We will have some guests come in and speak about all these aspects of it. And this is our first episode. And today we have Ajay and Rathina to kind of speak about their experiences over the last 15 years and what they see over the next 10 years as well. Let's dive in. Hey Rathina. Hey Ajay. I'll kind of start with one simple question, right? Rathina, I think you were very early in the Flipkart journey. In my mind, Flipkart was the first of the tech companies, right? So 2007, 2008, that's the time frame when tech kind of happened in India. And Flipkart was the torchbearer of it and has been as well. And to be in that early of a journey, what you might have seen how technology has kind of transitioned over this last 14 to 15 years, right? What is your take on it? What made Flipkart succeed? What's making Flipkart kind of company succeed? And what's the underlying technology that's making it succeed?
Hey, thanks, Surya. So I think Flipkart definitely was a big moment in Indian startup overall, if you look at the timeline, right? So I think there were companies before Flipkart, right? We had companies like Make My Trip, right? We had companies like India Times, Rediff, right? They're all trying to definitely solve for the internet, right? Flipkart definitely was a big moment in Indian startup history, right? I think 2007-8, I think if I just look back in 2005 when we graduated, Indian IT services companies are big, right? I think if you just go to any campus, TCS will be the day one company, right? So I think I just remember almost all the except few people, right? I think almost everyone will get placed in some of the top three services companies, right? Outside of this TCS, HCL and Cognizant, Wipro, you'll have companies like Yahoo, Cisco, right? I think they were all having their captives pretty early on in India, right? So those are the primary recruiters, right? And even if you look at those companies, those days, I remember still my first job at Novel, right? So always the Indian centers will work on the N-3 version. Let's say Windows 2003 is going on, right? I think Windows 2008 is going on, right? And 2005 version will be supported from India. I think that's how a lot of the captive centers have started, right? So I think in a way that helped, I think for Indian ecosystem to build the product talent, right? Which helped have a lot of people with the product mindset to be in the ecosystem. I think in fact, even if you look at the Flipkart founders, they came from Amazon. They bought of India, Amazon Development Center, right? And yeah, I think Flipkart was definitely one of the first successes, right? I think they started out pretty early in 2007-8. The initial 2-3 years were pretty slow for them. I think 2010 onwards, they started picking up, right? I think there are multiple factors, right? I think one, internet started becoming not like a Geo, but I think slightly mainstream, right? 2G came up, it became slightly mainstream. And Flipkart was so obsessed about, I think one big difference is compared to, let's say, the companies who were there before Flipkart in India, internet companies. I think Flipkart was the first company, I think, who made a huge focus around customer experience, right? I think if you look at the biggest hurdle for kind of online, anything online was trust, right? I think Flipkart focused rightly on kind of customer experience and trust early on, right? And they focused pretty sharp on books, right? I think, of course, it worked really well for them. Then it scaled, right? I think 2013-14 was the peak. And I think then the next wave of companies came, companies like Ola, Swiggy, Zomato started coming up 14-15 onwards, right? I think if you just look back now, I think from 2010 to even 2023 now, I think the consumption has completely changed. All the services we consume in India, right? I think right from, let's say, cabs, food delivery, across industry, everything got kind of transformed, right? So I think one big thing was, of course, the global captives and the export of software services from India continue to grow. I think what has happened in the last 10 years is even domestic consumption has actually increased, right? And we're able to build, let's say if you look at Ola Electric now, right? I think they're looking probably for an IPO this year, right? I think with the kind of the consumption we have, the growing middle class and the growing affluent population here, right? But the domestic has become a meaningful consumer market, right? I think exports are continue to dominate. I think if you look at all the SaaS companies from here, along with the services companies continue to export, right? Even Indian consumer internet has become mainstream, I would say, last decade or so. Yeah.
One of the things that I think about, right? I kind of try to ask this question to myself, right? It's about usually it's about exposure, right? And it's very parallel to our own lives, right? Say for example, if you have studied in a tier 2, tier 3 city, and you can be the class topper, right? You can be the class topper, but for you, the best opportunity might be a TCS or a CTS, getting into a TCS or a CTS. A little more, say, someone who can essentially come out of the tier 2, tier 3 cities, then I'm speaking 2010s, 2012s, and probably something now also. Someone who can come out of the tier 2, tier 3 cities into a tier 1 city like a Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad kind of thing. They get exposed to their society, where the society is not still clung up to a CTS or a TCS. Now they are speaking about some product companies or some other opportunities. So now you kind of open up your mindset to say, hey, okay, there are other companies, other opportunities that I can kind of go and do. And then if you get an opportunity to kind of go outside India, right, and kind of go to a developed country like US, you see the opportunity be drastically different, right? And you're like, oh, okay, there's so many opportunities, there's something that I can do differently and whatnot. And therefore, that exposure in an individual's life is very important for them to grow. And I think that's what happened in the ecosystem of technology in India as well, right?
I think the GICs actually brought in a lot of tech exposure to India,
exactly,
right? I think, for example, like otherwise, I don't think, see, if you look at Bangalore's history also, right? I think the GICs came to Bangalore in like late 80s and early 90s, right? That is because Bangalore had HIL, DRDO, some engineering talent was there. I think Texas Instruments was the first one who opened their center in India. And all these companies having their office in India, even though they were doing like N-3, N-4 version work, which has definitely given a lot of exposure, right? I think people from here will go to the headquarters, they'll work there, they'll come back, right? If you look at Microsoft, I think, right, today, the entire office suite is actually owned out of India. The GM for Office, Microsoft, sits out of India, right? I think all these people are able to build a conference at the headquarters, they're able to bring in the good work, and which also kind of diffuse the talent into the ecosystem. And I think even though people say TCS, Infosys, they don't pay, right? I think all credit to, they're the pioneers, right? I think they're the pioneers. I think if you look at the talent diffusion around tech has happened with large IT services companies and GICs, right? Which kind of gave confidence a lot of people, right, to solve our own domestic problems, even the export problem.
India is not an immigrating country, right? And the way it has worked for us is that the crores of people who went out, essentially a part of them coming back has enabled that technology infusion, and also these GICs, as you said, right, as they kind of became business outsourcing units, right, they have been able to bring technology, right? And I just wanted to kind of get into that aspect of it, right? Like you have seen both the US part of the story working in Google and in the Indian ecosystem as well, right? And have been a part of multiple tech startups as well. So do you feel that exposure is one thing that has enabled us to build better products?
Yeah, I mean, see, certainly I've spent nearly 12 years in the US, gone through multiple acquisitions, and I've seen these companies getting acquired and getting integrated into the mothership and things like that. Exposure is definitely a plus, and that's, I think, powering a lot of the imagination, which is a precursor to actually building and creating these businesses and taking advantage of the opportunities in India. When we had GICs, and the tech exposure into India is one aspect, but when employees of these companies went for training or other release related projects on site, right, looking at the markets there, looking at other businesses, maybe meeting with friends who are working at other startups and thinking, oh my God, what is this startup? What are you doing? You have such a really nice big company available. Why would you not just work there and instead go and try to start your own company? These small companies, so much risk. But they got that exposure. That is the other side of the exposure that many of the Indian engineering talent got as part of going on site. Then coming back here and not being comfortable with what once was amazing for them, right? Services company, Infosys, sitting in that bus at 5:30 in the morning, going to Electronic City, coming back in the evening, a good paycheck, on-site opportunities. It was fabulous,
Yeah.
And prevailing opportunities, if you compare, this was very good, a very, very good opportunity. But now they've seen something else.
Yeah.
They've tasted something else. They've seen their friends who probably went with them to college and then immigrated to the United States and taking part in all these amazing tech transformations there. They want that now. They come back here, not everybody, a small percentage is enough, it
it's
only
enough,
takes
yeah.
a small spark and then the fire spreads, right? So come back, it enabled them to imagine what is possible when you see, right? And that has come, and many successful businesses there translating to ideas that people are bringing back, trying, why don't we try this in India? Some ideas are too early, some are way ahead of their time. Some ideas will not work as is. You have to customize for the Indian market. The Indian people are very different.
And some ideas have worked as well, right? Like, say, for example, Flipkart and Ola, right? Like, I would say Indianized version of just that cash on delivery aspect of it, right? Those aspects have worked really well. And one of the things, right, both of you kind of were speaking about this. I think, Rathina, one point that you said was pre-2007s, there was no focus on customer. Probably building a business was the focus.
Yeah, internet business,
internet businesses, right? The exposure outside India kind of helped us focus on the customer as well. But I think one of the primary aspects of our ability to kind of focus on the customer is because of the technology that we had. It might be very simple, right? Just a chat, right? So we might have had chat before 2007 also, but essentially saying, hey, this chat for the customer to solve the customer's query ASAP, or say cash on delivery for the customer. Yes, there will be opportunities to break the system, right? And there will be players, 10% of the players who will kind of take to manipulate all of those things. But the ability to kind of think about what will work in India and the customer centricity because of the opportunities that happen in, say, software, right? Like, okay, I can support through chat.
Yeah.
I can build a BPO CRM.
Yeah, there are a few things changed, right? For example, one, of course, the exposure is one factor, right? I think building a software company also became relatively easier, I would say, post 2010, 11 timeframe with like things like AWS, right? A lot of hosted services, right? Otherwise, you have to build a software company. I think you will have a server room, right? And you have to host your own server, right? And then you kind of buy that from somewhere, you get the inventory, then you host it, right? So I think a lot of startups actually will run in the founder's laptop, right? So, right? So I think definitely the cost of building a software company is transformed, right? One, and when the talent is available, and then people have an aspiration, and all comes together, right? So you have a problem to solve, and you have people who are aspirational, and there is not a huge entry barrier, right? And then your venture ecosystem also evolved, right? I think venture ecosystem. I think Flipkart had the Series A as a 1 million funding, right? I think it's a big funding at the point in time, right? I think post 2014-15, even venture ecosystems evolved. A lot of global venture capital funds have started in India offices, and they started deploying large sum of capital here, right? I think, of course, that's a very critical part for anybody to create an ecosystem, right? So they play their part, and of course, government is trying to, of course, ease out a lot of things, right? A lot more things to do, but I think things have changed a lot, right? So I think all these things coming together, I think if I just think about, right, 2020 onwards, I think doing a startup has become for good reason, it became a cool, right? So cool thing to do, right? So I think a lot of campus startups, right? A lot of campus startups, I think people are starting up at a very, very young age, right? So those are all very positive things, right? I think you can even convince your parents and your girlfriend and your wives for doing a startup. I think that's a big deal, right? I think back then, right? So I think those are all positive things actually helping out our ecosystem now. Yeah.
I think we all speak about UPI a lot, right? And how easy, we are all proud that it's an Indian tech stack that's like, you go to the US, it's not there. You go any developed country, it's not there, right? But primarily, the ability to kind of say, I'm going to adapt to this technology by shopkeeper downstairs or a tea wala or a coffee wala downstairs, and to say essentially, I'm going to adopt to this technology. I think the way I see that is everything has predecessors, right? So the ability of internet companies of the 2000s and 2010s to kind of say, hey, you can pay through Uber Cash or Ola Cash, that migrating to primarily transforming that to entirely, hey, okay, you don't need to carry cash. You guys don't carry cash, right? Like, no, I think, a long period of time after which we are not carrying cash, right? So what do you think about what is the technology that allowed us to get here? Was the same technology available previously? Is it just that the mindset adoption better, or what would be the few things that
I don't think of course the cloud was one big shift, right? I think internet became mainstream right from early 2000s. I don't think things have changed much, right? But I think the cost of building software has come down. But I think if you look at things like UPI, I think that's like one visionary team actually thinking very ahead of everyone, right? I think the overall digital public goods as a concept, right? I think I would say thanks to Nandan and team, they've thought much ahead of everyone else in the world, right? I think and they thought for India. I think they keep saying for a billion scale, right? I think they started with the Aadhaar, right? Where they actually brought in the digital identity. Then it went to the bank accounts, right? And they made the KYC possible. If you just look at not just UPI, right? Even things like all this fintechs booming, right? Things like Zerodha, Grow, are able to grow at this rate because the online KYC is completely possible. Okay. Otherwise, for example, someone who's not even trading, just going and doing KYC physically, the cost of onboarding customers is so high, right? I think overall the Aadhaar and India stack has actually also enabled a lot of things in the fintech world. For sure, right? I think, and UPI was an amazing model where government had just put a protocol and a framework, and they allowed private parties to kind of build apps and compete, right? If you just look at today, PhonePe and Google Pay plus Paytm almost wants 95% of it, right? So they're able to bring in the right players, bring in competition, and made the kind of MDR free for the merchants, right? And so that even the small merchants are actually not hesitant to kind of adopt. A lot of things have went well there, right? I think I wish we could replicate UPI in many areas, right? I think we have a lot of problems to solve, right? Yeah.
It's a very good start, no? I think from there it will go.
Yeah.
Ajay, I just wanted to kind of take your thoughts, right? How has, say, your journey has been studied in India, studied in the US, worked in the US, worked back. Say, for example, when you graduated from your undergrad, what were the skills that got you into the company or into your master's or into Google? And if someone needs to do it now, is it the same skills primarily?
It has definitely changed a lot.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of tech hiring has changed a lot. A lot of it, some companies still keep the same. For example, we were talking earlier about TCS and CTS being day one companies. Wasn't very different for me as well. RV College, arguably a good college even back in the day, 2004. Day one company, probably Infosys, right, which all of us wrote, got our first offers, analytical coding, analytical questions and puzzles and things like that, very similar. I think they still continue that mode of hiring today. For the large services companies, I don't think it has changed significantly, maybe some small tweaks. See, today it has changed quite a bit. A lot of companies are willing to look at your online projects. They're willing to give you a small coding test and see how you perform. Data structures and algorithms, which only a very small section of companies used to focus on 20 years back, today is almost mainstream. Everybody needs to know these skills.
Why is that? Like, why? What in the building of the tech stack of a company has changed over the last 20 years, such that what are very few companies were looking back is now probably like default with every company. What's that change there?
I think the advent of frameworks, for example, you can think of Django in Python, or it could be Ruby on Rails, or it could be Java and Spring Boot, Node.js. A lot of the boilerplate code that is required in order to serve an internet request. The servers, what kind of software does a server run in order to support 1,000 users, 100,000 users, million users? How do you scale from 1,000 to 100,000 to a million users? Every business wants this. And so the open source movement took this very seriously, and a lot of open source projects came up where people started building these frameworks, and a lot of other developers contributed because they saw value. They don't want to keep writing this software again and again and again and again. Every company wants the same thing. So frameworks are available, computers available. AWS comes and says you don't need a building and servers and power and security and things. I'll give you compute for a very small price. So the startup costs are low. Frameworks are available to get you started. So how do you build products using the existing frameworks? The focus is now on user problems. What kind of user problems can I solve? Because the technical problems have been solved to a large extent. I can stand on the shoulder of a giant framework, so to speak, right? So I can focus on building so many solutions very quickly to solve real user problems because everything else is taken care of.
Just kind of stop you there. I'm not a tech guy, so I'm going to ask you to break it down in very layman terms, right? When you say frameworks, right? What do you mean by frameworks?
20 years back, people definitely wrote a lot of like server software.
Can you give an example?
Example, they would all be kind of, they wouldn't be open source. They would be closed source solutions that very few companies had.
If you have to host a, let's say, internet backend, you have to either go and buy an IBM WebSphere, right? So, and then if you have to build it on your own using, let's say, plain vanilla Java, you'll not have something like a Spring Boot where actually bring up a web server, like probably in a matter of hours, right? You have to spend a lot of time writing a lot of boilerplate code, right?
You have to figure out how to accept an HTTP request.
Okay.
You might have to have some knowledge of how TCP is working because the HTTP connection has to be set up over a TCP connection. You had to have in-depth knowledge of so many of these things, even to debug why certain requests are not reaching your server, right? So server is basically something that's waiting on the back end of any website, right? And it's waiting for requests to come in from a client. You want to access a particular website, you send a request to the server and say, I want this particular website, and the server sends you back a lot of code that your browser can interpret and display on your screen, right? Now, this involves a lot of things in between, those bytes have to go over a physical wire at the end of the day, some fiber optic cabling, or it has to do with satellite communication, something like that. A lot of intermediate protocols like HTTP to do some basic handshake. How do I establish a connection with the server and the browser so that I can even send this request in the first place? A lot of it is standardized. So today, I don't have to worry about these things. If I start with something like Spring Boot with Java, and getting to that initial part where I can accept requests, send some default, home page, it's a couple of hours of work, not even hours, maybe a few minutes for good programmers, right, who are aware of the tech stack. It's a few minutes. You can get a simple website up and running in a few hours today. So when that becomes so simple, then the focus is more on, okay, what user problems can I solve?
What features can help the user?
Yeah.
I think data sets has become kind of a proxy to understand someone's problem-solving ability, right? I think before cloud, right? I think even setting up a server, you need to know, for example, what is the hard disk, what is the RAM you need to bring in, right? What is the cable you need to bring in, what is the network speed you need? A lot of things, even hardware things you need to know, right? For you to bring up a proper kind of internet backend. Right, I think a lot of those things get abstracted, right, with a lot of open source frameworks, with a lot of cloud infrastructure, right. So the software engineers' jobs actually becoming more of kind of assembling things to build a solution, right. So what do you check for them, right? You check for their problem solving ability. And what is the best way to check for the problem solving ability, right? So given a problem, can they actually program and solve it, right, in a given time frame, right? So, and data structures being a kind of a common subject everyone studies in second semester, third semester, right? It becomes a common minimum ground for you to check someone's problem solving ability, right? I think in fact some companies like Google and Facebook actually made it kind of a practice. I think in fact they started this practice of interviewing based on this DSA problems, right?
Yeah,
So
that's what
become mainstream. Yeah,
it's easy. You don't need too much background.
Okay.
Given a problem like, how can you shuffle a deck of cards, even if you don't know any programming, using your analytical skills, you can come up with some solution. Then the last step is translating that to code, and then improving efficiency and things like that. So very low barrier there. You don't need too much, background information in order to solve these and show whether you can solve these problems and think in an analytical way. It's the lowest common denominator.
It's an improved aptitude test.
Yeah, it's improved aptitude test. Yeah, you're right. Like say, someone working in Cisco, right? They may be too deep in networking, right? So I think the interviewer may not even know to the extent they can ask them right questions on networking, right? So this becomes a common language for everyone to talk about. This is the problem-solving skills. This is what I'm going to test, and people start preparing for it. Nowadays, I think the other problem is it become too templatized. That's a different problem, but the intent was that. Yeah.
But and going back, so one of the things you said was, hey, 20 years back, there was no frameworks. Or very few frameworks,
mostly private
and not open source, and therefore you need to kind of write a lot of code, and therefore the jobs in India were mostly support jobs. So you need little bit low level language understanding.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I think jobs in India at that time would basically be, okay, here is a framework we've already built internally.
Okay.
I have to first train you to understand this so that you can start contributing positively
to
those.
Say, for example, right now, to get into good product companies in tech space, if you're a computer science or an electrical or any engineer, you need to have a decent understanding of frameworks. Would that be a correct statement?
Definitely a good to have.
Good to have. And if you had showcased some projects, that is a better skill set.
Yeah, because if you know how one system works, the different languages have different frameworks, but the underlying principles are the same. And so if you can communicate or program in one particular framework, it's just a different language. The ideas are there, the structure is there. It's just a different language.
Okay. The actual question I wanted to have is, how do I get a job in 2005? And how do I get a job in 2024 if I want to enter tech?
See, tech today is such a large basket.
Yeah.
And it has been segmented also. Now within tech, there's analytics, there's AI and machine learning related fields, which are very different from, say, back-end development or front-end development, right? And they have each of these different segments have evolved in their own way about how they want to hire talent. So having a rough idea of broadly what you want to do, you have to pick some area.
Yeah.
Data structures and algorithms is the catch-all still. The first round or the screening round, it's cheap. I can administer a screening round for a very large number of people. And in many cases, if you don't clear that DSA round, you won't even get to the next stage. You might be great at building amazing projects, but nobody will see you at all.
It's like you said, lowest common denominator across most of the tech.
Yeah, it's a quick and dirty and easy way of filtering out candidates or filtering in good quality candidates from whom you want to select further. But after that, having some tech stack understanding will definitely put you in a significant advantage when it comes to hiring. And today it's so easy, there's no excuse not to do it.
Okay.
Flip it, the other way is someone who has a good, solid tech stack understanding will find it very easy to get hired.
Yeah.
Because they've been there, they've done that, they have something to show. Easier for me to take this person.
Even if someone built something very, very small and simple, right, it actually shows up very clearly. You'll be very, very confident about what you're talking about.
Say, Rathina, you were product manager for the marketplace in Flipkart.
Yeah.
You might have communicated, interacted, and hired a lot of these people. what did you find some of the best people have, and what did you find some of the people who did not have?
So I think the hiring remains same. I think whether it's a Flipkart, whether it's a Swiggy or even Google today, right? I think most of these companies look for problem-solving skills, right? Which mostly get tested through programming assignments, right? And then they look for certain design elements, right? Are they able to think abstract? Are they able to model things and stuff like that, right? So I think once they get hired, I think everyone who's inside has similar skill set. At least they have basic problem-solving skills. They have some design elements, right? I think after that, I think some of the skill set which actually differentiates the good developer who's able to grow fast, right? Who's able to really perform well are mostly around 2-3 things, right? I think one, I think the really good developers ask a lot of why, right? I think they have a good product sense, right? I think lot of times actually by asking a couple of whys, you may actually even avoid building something, right? They don't just keep building something which is not required, right? So I think product sense is actually one thing which actually differentiates a lot of good developers, right? And second, a lot of good developers kind of try to understand the overall context in which this particular feature or a product is going to operate, right? Business context and the system context, right? A lot of times actually they provision for what is going to come, right? And if you're going to work with a good engineer, right? Even if you're not thought through the requirements, the kind of questions they'll ask systematically will kind of lead you towards the right design, right? So, and third thing is, I think their ability to work with people right across different teams, because the moment the company becomes slightly larger, their ability to communicate, give the requirements to the different teams, dependent teams, their ability to communicate with their product manager, ability to communicate with the designers, right? So I would say outside of the technical skill set, I think their ability to kind of have a good product sense, user context, and their ability to model things appropriately, right? And then their ability to kind of communicate and work with people is what I think kind of differentiates good people from kind of average or above average people. Yeah.
I think one company that does this really well, I'm sure there are many others. An example is Udaan. In their interviewing stage, right? They have a coding round, of course, where you have to showcase your coding acumen, but then they don't stop there. You also have an engineering manager round or an engineering management focused round where you talk about, system design and how you're going to, this new feature is coming up and all these things are there. How do you approach it? What's the best way? And as a growing company, requirements can change. So the decisions you make should support your growth as well. And the third is the with the like a product sense kind of interview round also that they do, which is I think very holistic in the way good software developers will get hired at these companies. Many other companies are also following suit. They've seen Udaan's success. They're saying, okay, if that's the kind of team they built with this kind of interview process, why don't we also experiment with some of those things? So it is coming, It's not just coding. Some product sense, customer, understanding of the customer, business context, all of this comes together. And they don't have to hire hundreds of people. They need a few developers.
Really good. I think one thing I can say is, right, for example, like based on whatever I have seen, I think the difference between kind of an average developer and a great developer is not like a 1x, 2x difference, right? A lot of times actually it's minimum, like I would say 8x, 10x difference, right? Right. I think you might actually save probably a couple of lakhs by paying a couple of lakhs low for an average developer. I think the cost of having an average developer versus a great developer, I've seen like literally a lot of times the difference in the way they bring the value is actually almost 8x, 10x difference.
Mostly it's the questions that they ask.
It's the questions they ask. Otherwise, you keep building something which is not required, right? And sometimes the solutions can be very, very elegant, very, very simple. Right? I think you need those a really good skill set to simplify things, right? I think especially in engineering, you can't really say like always 1 + 1 = 2, right? So really, one good developer can actually make a lot of difference.
Yeah. Ajay, I've seen you taking the onboarding session for Crio. We've seen almost 3,000, 4,000 students onboarded right now over the last 3 years, right? A lot of people want to, and this is only Crio, right? I'm very sure there are a lot of people going and learning other technologies across different platforms in India and across the globe, right? What differentiates a person who succeeds and what differentiates a person who doesn't?
See, it's mostly about intent and motivation. Because today, with the amount of help available to learn software development, it's not, and there's a lot of simplification, not as hard as it used to be before. So many examples, so many great resources online available where you can learn. Uh, so it's all about intent and motivation. Someone who really wants it and is willing to put in the hard work for it. That is basically a huge differentiator, right? Many people think that today with ChatGPT giving you boilerplate code or even fairly advanced customized code also, right? That the job of a developer will become more and more easy. Why should I work so hard when ChatGPT can do it for me? It's like people saying, why should I learn so much math when the calculator can do it for me? There is still a space for really good mathematicians to solve amazing problems that will never go away. And the same thing happens here. The lazy people who want to take shortcuts and want to assume that something like a code generator is probably sufficient. Learn a programming language will only go so far.
Yeah, well, in that example itself, no, even if ChatGPT can give very good codes, right? Or if, say, the analogy of I have a great calculator or a computer, I can essentially, why do I need to know calculus or whatnot, right? But the understanding of calculus and its application in real life problem statements, if you know that, your ability to kind of use a calculator or computer kind of becomes very, very easy, and more, you can extract more out of it. Where if you don't know the underlying principle of a calculus, you can't even extract.
I think the principle is same, right? You can have a great teacher, you can have a great guru. You should know what to ask for, right? I think that's what they call it, prompt engineering nowadays. Right? If you don't know what to ask, right? I think that's the crux of it, right? Not just in engineering, right? Even in marketing, overall the content writing, right? So all these will become like kind of accelerators for someone who know what to do, right? And what to ask for, right? I think of course all this. I think going back to your question about, I think what differentiates people, I think after seeing thousands of students, right? I think we see, I think the fundamental zeal to learn and the curiosity, I think makes all the difference, right? I think not just in, we have seen with a lot of people you hired also, right? So,
what are the common reasons that you see for people failing in, people want to build a career in tech, but what are the common reasons why they fail? One thing that I can think about is they want to get into tech just because of the salary and not because what they want to learn, and therefore when they understand how hard it is, they essentially give up, right? But that is more broad. But is that the only thing, or?
No, I think it's. I don't want to be so hard on people also.
Okay.
Sometimes it's the lack of mentorship. Failure is okay, but if you have a way of getting out of that failure with some external help, guidance, or whatever you need at that point to go over that hump, that you need that guidance at that right time also. If you don't have the right person guiding you during your low time, when you are almost giving up, someone should help you and say, look, it's not that hard. Just persevere for a little bit and I'm here to help you. And, they actually sit down with you and work things out. Once you go over that tide, right, then your momentum is back. You're willing to go further. Happens in sport.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll have many anecdotes given that, your history of sports, which you should definitely talk about.
No, say for example, what we spoke about now, right? Even just before this, like how your kid wanted you to kind of throw the balls at a particular spot. At sport, when you get out, if you like that sport, you come back. You just need if you're playing cricket, right? You just need your dad or your friend or your granddad or your mother, right? To put that ball into the same place again and again and again for 30 or 40 or 100 times so that you're comfortable with that ball the next time that you go out and play, right? You're not essentially closing yourself up and saying, I got out this match, I'm not going to play cricket for the rest of my life, right? And a great point, right? A good mentor, it's just people. So one of the things that I take from it is good person to kind of guide you at a point when you feel low.
See, just before you give up, you need that booster.
Yeah.
You need a booster dose.
A lot of times it happens with the kind of a good peer network also.
Yeah.
Right? I think if you're actually doing it with a few friends, right? I think it generally happens, and I think a lot of times actually it's very comforting to see not just I am struggling and other people are struggling, right? So that gives that little bit of comfort to kind of not to go very hard on you, right? So
You went to grad school in the US?
Yes.
Yeah. Grad school was tough.
Very tough.
Very tough. I think that peer group. Actually, I was like, I went to UW, Madison. Sarang, I met Sarang there. Everybody in UW Madison were IITs or BITS. The worst case was NITs. And I'm this guy from some tier 2 unknown college there, right? Hacked my way into that system. But what I realized there's so much inferiority complex, right? Like, I don't know if you've seen that or felt that, but I had this inferiority complex that I'm not fit into that place, right? And any tough situation, right? That kind of comes back to me saying I'm not fit here. But one of the things that helps is that peer network, right? Of, okay, you're going through a low phase, you don't know if you're fit into the system, you think it is a bad decision, but somebody or someone or you yourself had figured out the way to kind of just bump up into it. Then every 5 to 7 years you get back into the same situation. It's just that the situation is more complex, more bigger, and then you just need to correlate and say, okay, I was able to kind of cross that bump. It's the same kind of bump. I'll be able to cross that. So
I think what I have seen, especially with the career transformation journey of a lot of our students, right? So one, I think first, a lot of times people lack that strong why, right? I think, I don't know, for example, recently we had a Hall of Fame event, right, where we actually celebrated some of the success of 2023, right? We had one of the very inspiring student, right? He was a dad of, I think he's around 39, 40 years old, right? And he was talking that even saying, for example, I did it for my daughter. He had a very strong why he wants to do it, right? So a lot of times, like, it need not be that sentimental, right? I think you need to have a strong why you need to do something, right? I think that will generally keeps you going. And once you have that strong why, and after that you need a very clear path, right? It could be either you follow some senior or someone, or you get into a structured program like Crio, right? So where you have a very clear path. If I do A, B, C, D, I'll get this, right? I think that clarity is critical. A lot of times people say, I want to go here, and there are multiple paths and they don't pursue any one of them very clearly, right? And I think that's when having a clear path suggested by someone who has done it before really helps, right? Then when you're going through the path, of course, having a good mentor, having a good peer network helps you to kind of navigate and go past that, right? I think that's what I would say.
So just to summarize the last 20-30 minutes, right? If you are someone who wants to get into tech, a good understanding of frameworks, data structures, algorithms, there's some fundamentals to kind of get in. Second is a strong why. Why you want to do something. Third is having a peer network, which kind of, or being that peer network, right? Because it's very easy to kind of say, this doesn't work, right? When you face like 5 or 6 failures. So having a peer network and being a part of that network yourself to kind of say, hey, it's okay, I've seen someone do it. These are the fundamentals. If we do the first principles well, we are going to get something, right? So those are 3 things, not in the same order, but any order, right? Anything.
I think if you have that much, you're sorted. You don't need much more than that. Yeah, I think you summarized it pretty well.
So we spoke about the last 10-15 years of what has happened in the technology realm, right? Like with LLMs, GenAI, and everything around that coming in, right? What do you think the future is, right?
Yeah, I think if I just look ahead, right, I think there are a couple of things. Of course, the overall GenAI and LLMs are definitely a huge platform shift, right? I think it could be, it's as fundamental as internet, but it is definitely bigger than what cloud, what mobile has brought to the tech scene, I would say, right? I think, and if you just look at last year, it's primarily a lot of buzz, people are playing around with it. I'm sure the applications of it and pure adoption actually will start coming in the coming years, right? I think it will definitely change almost all industries, right? All existing products will definitely evolve, right? I think that's from the technology and platform shift perspective. But if you just look at overall markets for tech, right, I would say if you just look at India, I think we're just starting, right? I think e-commerce has seen probably one way, but I think if you still look at our e-commerce penetration in Indian retail is like sub 10%, right? I think we're just scratching the surface, right? And if you look at financial markets, right, I think if I remember right, I think even less than 1% of people are in markets, right? I think every industry segment has a lot of opportunities, right? Right. I think and with continuous 6-7% economic growth, I would say if you just look ahead in next 10 years, I'm sure there will be a lot of domestic consumption, right? I think a lot of opportunity for big consumer opportunities, right? On the other hand, I think India has huge tech talent, right? I think it's only second to US. I think we're going to become almost largest developers in probably like I think 5-6 years from now, right? I think which opens up a lot of opportunities for export. Already, Indian IT services is the largest white collar job in India, right? And we are largest exporters across the globe, right? And I think if you look at now, Indian SaaS companies are actually started becoming meaningful, right? I think Freshworks has gone IPO. And we have like Zoho and multiple other companies are actually becoming $100 million plus companies, right? I think I'm very, very bullish about Indian tech scene for next decade, right? I think we're going to see the probably peak in next, I would say, in the coming decade, right? The kind of talent depth we have and domestic opportunities we have, I'm very, very bullish about the coming decade for India.
I think that's a optimistic face of it, right? So there's this pessimistic face of it where people are saying Gen AI is going to come. There are already a lot of job cuts that we have seen over the last 1 or 2 years, especially not, and across the platforms, right? Like big companies like Google, Facebook, kind of thing, and across smaller startups, right? People always have this fear of recession probably every 7 years. So 2018, 2008, 2014, now 22, 23. And with Gen A coming in, will it compound? Will jobs kind of reduce?
I think every fundamental shift in the way technology has worked has only created more and more interesting jobs and interesting opportunities. Will some jobs go? Yes. The most basic mundane coding jobs that ChatGPT can replace, they will probably replace them.
What kind of jobs will be there?
Hard to be very exact about it, but within companies, prototyping new websites are much faster. A competent developer can take the help of AI tools in order to prototype things faster, take it from idea to solution much faster. So it's hard. So I don't need as many developers to do the same amount of work, right? Doesn't mean that the person who's using these AI tools and then building out solutions for the company can take it easy. I mean, they'll have a really good job on their hands. They still have to have the customer understanding, the market understanding, the product sense, and all those things have to come in. They are the ones who know where this product is going to go in the future, and factoring all of that into today's designs, it still needs a very, very competent programmer. But you don't need someone who just basically do a very small prototype to see if things can work. In more hardware type of companies, where you have to write device drivers and things like that. If you feed in, say, a pinout sheet of a particular microprocessor and something that comes with it in terms of a trading manual, then generating, bring up software and things like that should be fairly straightforward going forward. I mean, it might make some of those jobs a little bit redundant. Today is a very specialized job. Bringing up a microprocessor board and on a PCB is actually very specialized work. It needs understanding of several things, including basic electronics and how microprocessors work. Maybe a lot of that can be commoditized because AI does it much better, and there's plenty of training data available there. So to train on a vast amount of code already available, and then using that information and knowledge to bring up new software on new boards and things like that should be simpler. So some jobs will go. But more interesting jobs will come and they'll be large in number,
Okay.
because it just shifts the goalpost of what needs to be solved. Previously people wrote a lot of frameworks, a lot of code in order to serve websites.
Yeah.
Frameworks came, some jobs went,
But more jobs.
Yes, huge
Yeah.
appetite for more jobs too.
Yeah. So the additional question that I had was, a lot of what we build in India at this point in probably last 10, 15 years also is either SaaS, fintech, e-commerce, can be a tech, right? Where we take a service and simplify the service probably using tech. Do you think products, right? When I say products, what Apple has built out there, some of the Google products, some of the hardware related products, right? Do you think that's coming in India, to India?
I think if you probably refer the deep tech products, right, and let's say social media kind of big platforms, I think we have not got success from India so far, right? And of course, we are kind of digitizing a lot of industries, right? I think that will change, right? I think it will take some probably few more years, right? I think we have the talent depth required to do that. I have no doubt about that. But I think it also requires different kind of investment philosophy, different kind of support ecosystem to make that happen, right? I think we are still probably slightly early for building those kind of companies. But I think a lot of people have started doing. I think if you just look at space, right? I think we have a bunch of companies actually building and actually sending satellites, right? So it's happening, right? It's slowly picking up, right? I think it may not be as prominent as companies who are digitizing existing industries, right? Companies who are building probably marketplaces, right? Those are the problems we're getting solved right now. I think probably the deep tech companies are currently in the works. It will probably take a few more years for us to get to mainstream there. Yeah.
I think it's more specialized in order to generalize.
Okay.
Go in very specific solutions. Like there's a drone company called Dona.
Yeah.
Dona.tech or something like that. Right? They build highly specialized drones that can be used in high altitudes, Kashmir and all those areas used really well. Primarily sold to the
Military.
The military.
Yeah.
Now you can say, why? How come there's so many opportunities in civilian drones and many other things there, delivery and things like that? It's fine. It'll come. You start somewhere very specialized, and then once you have the know-how, then you know how to penetrate a much larger market.
Yeah.
It's also good to solve a very small problem first, get your expertise there, and then increase the scope. I think
there's a company called Crio Orange Robotics, right? I think they're Indian guys, right? I think they're doing really well. I think probably outside India market, so they're focusing currently, right? I think there are companies from deep tech space kind of emerging out. Probably a couple of successes.
Exactly. Right? A couple of good successes. I think a lot more hardware will be built, right? Yeah. Ajay, so you did your undergrad here, went to do your master's in the US, worked at Google, worked at other startups, right? That was the pathway. I think there were two pathways there. Either you enter TCS, CTS, work for 5-6 years, get offsite or on-site, right? And then go abroad, work that, get exposed. Or the other pathway is do your master's, get a job, right? Are those the same pathways today?
I think those two are still available. Going there, doing your master's. Some people go for undergrad. So those options exist. The L1 visa is the one that you generally use, a business visa, temporary stay, go there, work for a few years, find another opportunity who's willing to sponsor you and transition. That is also there. An interesting third one has come up. You don't have to go there at all. Stay in India and work for a company abroad, because a lot of remote opportunities have now come up.
A lot of them pay US salaries.
They pay US salaries, because for multiple reasons. First, it's fair. The second being there's a lot of regulation as well. And there's also a lot of competition for good talent. So basically, we have a few cryo graduates also, 3 years back. They graduated, got some good experience, and now interviewed with some American companies. They're living in India, getting paid almost what a fresher there or someone with 2-3 years of experience there is getting paid, but they work remotely. A lot of those opportunities coming up.
Are remote jobs like a huge part of it right now, or
it is not?
No, it is
certainly not a huge percentage. Probably some single-digit percentages today. But if you're really talented and very accomplished, also you have the discipline to get stuff done in a remote setting. It's a different mindset.
Yeah.
If you are that type of person, then very, very good and very rewarding remote career opportunities.
I think companies like GitLab and all, right? I think even today, I think they were remote even before COVID. A lot of companies went remote during COVID and then they went back to their older way. I think being a remote company requires a lot of discipline, right? I think a lot of discipline, and it requires a lot of, I think, very conscious effort from company side as I think from all the employees, right? I think, but a lot of those open source companies typically remote even before COVID, right? I think they continue to be remote even today, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the additional point is that why are companies okay with remote even today when COVID is gone and you have the option of bringing back teams? It's about finding really good talent pools, and talent pools are spread across the world. They don't necessarily want to move for whatever reasons. So why leave out those people? Hire them, build good teams, have very good work rhythms to make sure you can make this whole remote thing work. That's what companies are also looking for. Certainly possible. If you are a skilled developer, extremely good, high-paying remote jobs, and you can live anywhere in the world.
So, if I have the skill, can I just apply and get a job there? Is it straightforward? No. Right?
I mean, there are job portals now dedicated to remote work.
I think especially US, I think one is remote. I think remote is possible across globe, right? I think what I've seen is a lot of people going to Europe and other parts of the world, right? I think where
without pursuing their masters, but
there,
directly for a job.
Yeah. I think if you look at Europe, I think it's very common. Right? I think the Meta in London has hired a lot of people from India, right? Directly. Right? And then Amsterdam, Booking.com, if you see almost, I think 60% will be Indians there, right? I think a lot of companies in German, right? They're hiring directly from India, right? I've seen some of friends going to South Korea, right? Kupang, right? And Southeast Asia is another one. I think Singapore has a lot of opportunities. Right?
Same with Dubai, Middle East.
Middle East has comparatively lower for tech, I would say. There are companies like Kareem and like Noon and few more, right? But if you look at Singapore, has a lot of companies, right? I think if you look at Grab and all this, the Tokopedia, right, and a lot of them, right? I think Southeast Asia is a big market for a lot of growing startups, right? So I think US is still tough, I think, for direct jobs. I've seen a lot of people going to probably Australia, London, and from the same company, they get transferred to US.
Okay.
I think visa from London to US is okay. I think India to US, direct H1B sponsor, I don't think people hire like that, right? I think that's mostly happening through either you work in a large company and get an internal transfer and go there in L1, then get some other job there, or go through higher studies. Right? Those are the options.
Higher studies is still the easiest and most popular option?
Popular, it is changing.
It's changing?
It is changing gradually.
Okay.
It's still a very viable option.
Yeah.
I don't mean to undersell it or anything like that. But for those of you who are looking for masters as a vehicle to move to the US, I would say focus more on the college ranking. Go to some really good colleges. The top 20, top 25.
Where did you go?
Then you're safe. I went to University of Southern California.
Yeah.
In Los Angeles, right? So I think if you go to a good college, which has very good campus placement opportunities, or you go to a college which is in a strong tech hub, because the local companies, the companies that have been set up there, they're incentivized by the state, the government, many tax.
And practically, it's easy also.
It's easier also. But then there's more reasons than just easy. The companies also get a lot of benefits when they hire local tech talent, and the cities want their graduates to be hired. So so pick the right place. The location is very important. There should be some sort of a tech ecosystem within the vicinity of where you're going. And the second is, the better the ranking, I would say top 25, top 30. Don't bother about the others.
And so the next question there is, how do I get into top 25 if I'm a computer science or an electrical engineer who wants to pursue computer science masters, because I want to kind of build that pathway. I want to go into a good master's university, do my masters, and then get a good job. Are there things say I'm an average student, like 7 GPA, I haven't done projects. I have the next year to plan for. How do I plan for the next whole year to kind of get there?
I mean, admissions in US colleges has gone through a lot of changes since I applied almost 20 years ago, right? Today, with the exposure available, the colleges also expect you to have done something. Some portfolio of work that you can show. I'm talking about computer science only. Some projects that you've built. They also look at not just your technical skills, but also a lot of other aspects of your personality, right? So, some side projects, some other hobbies that you've pursued, your communication skills also are very important. Some colleges ask you to write a statement of purpose, and how you articulate why you want to go there and what you want to do later also can be a significant way to sort of make sure you get in. So I think basically build a really good
portfolio of
work. Have some extracurricular hobbies and things where you've actually achieved something. So it's not good enough to say I also play guitar casually, right? Or the piano or something like that. If you say, okay, learned it for so many years, have performed at so many places, and here is a YouTube video of one of the performances that I've given. Much stronger. I read books versus I review books. Here's my Goodreads where I've documented all the reviews that I've done. And here are my here's a blog post I wrote about what I learned about all the books I read in 2023. So whatever you do, go deep. You don't have to spread out too much. You can be very specific, but you go deep. People applying for digital marketing roles. I've created an Instagram account. I've grown it from 0 to 500,000 or 100,000 or 50,000 subscribers. And from there, I was able to generate X amount of money by selling X, whatever, So this is possible today. It's not so difficult. Like the 3 examples I gave are achievable. It's not difficult.
For a year at least.
And there are people who are doing this. So that's your competition. So if you are not doing it, definitely other people are doing it. And the colleges have a limited admission count. So which ones would they pick?
Makes sense. So then when did you go to your master's?
2006.
You graduated?
Graduated 2008 from master's.
So 2008 is a great year, right?
Fantastic year.
I graduated my master's in 2009.
Everybody knows about 2008.
So one of the things that I at multiple places where we speak to students, right? One of the things that they ask for is recession, right? Every time there is something going on, right? Every time the economy is dull in the US and whatnot, we feel the recession is coming, and therefore people feel that, hey, doesn't matter how hard I study, I'm going to not get a job because the marketplace is like that, right? We've been through probably 3 right now. So thoughts?
See, recessions, I'm almost dating myself here. But see, it's something I tell all the students at Crio as well, right? For a skilled person, there is no recession.
Okay.
Right? Think about the company's perspective. You want to cut down costs, but you don't want to shut down. You want to stay alive as a company. You want to continue producing your products. You want to continue supporting the products you've sold. So who do you want on your team, a lean team, to make sure you can still continue to do all this? You want your strongest players, right? Who are those strongest players? Extremely good execution, extremely good skill, very talented. If you can be that person, there's no recession for you, right? So 2008, when I graduated from my master's, I had some experience in India for 2 years before I went for my master's, right? That kind of helped me when I applied to companies, because they're seeing a flurry of resumes, so many freshers graduating from their master's with no real world work experience. And then you see this one resume, oh, this person has actually worked 2 years, 2.5 years. Let's see if we can, hire this person. And if that doesn't work, then we have the rest of the pool anyway, right? So that helped.
Where did you go to? Postmasters.
Postmasters, I joined a startup called Ironport Systems,
Okay.
which was into web and email security, which had recently been acquired by Cisco Systems.
Okay.
But they were still operating independently as a separate entity, doing, today we call it machine learning and all of those things. I was working on it back then when it was not as cool as it is today, right? But again, see, I had two offers. This was one of the offers I got. The other offer I had was from Motorola. So two offers in a downturn economy. Basically, it comes down to the skills you have and the experience you have and what you can show.
Yeah.
So if you're a good, competent software developer, there is no recession for you.
Rachina, thoughts?
Yeah, mine was a different story, right? So I did my MBA and graduated in 2009 March, right? I think that's when like almost the entire world was kind of in a hiring freeze, right? And I was actually changing from my developer role to post MBA job, right? So I think some of my friends actually went and took developer role also, right? So I was like, I graduated in March, and I was trying to get a job which is a non-developer role, right? Because I did MBA, like whatever, I spent a lot of money and time. I thought I want to get into, I don't want to go back to developer role, right? So I think it's definitely like 3-4 months of really tough time, right? Because nobody was really hiring, right? And literally no companies, the companies like Union Bank of India was coming to campus, right? So mostly like PSUs are hiring. Yeah, I think it was, I came back to Bangalore. I was just literally applying to hundreds of companies every day, right? I'll reach out to my college seniors, undergrad seniors, postgrad seniors, everyone in my LinkedIn, right? So I kind of hacked LinkedIn. I can join any, if I join, I think they stopped now. If I join a group, they'll allow you to message whoever is common in group, right? So I'll message 100 people every day in LinkedIn, right? So it was really painful for 3-4 months, I would say, right? So yeah, I think only thing is, I think when markets are kind of bad, right? I think I see a lot of people talking about economy is bad, it's coming up, going up, right? So we are not economists to predict anything, right? So we can only do what is in our control, right? So I was very clear, right? So I'm just going to keep preparing, keep applying, right? And let's see what happens, right? So and finally, I think after 3 months or so, I got an internship, not a full-time job, right? I joined as an intern. I keep doing the same thing. Then I think probably I would say June or something, market started opening up and they started hiring, right? So I think good thing for me was like I had like in a week I got some 3 interview calls. My hit ratio was like almost, because I was just waiting for those interviews to happen, right? So like almost 100%. I got all offers, right? So I would say is like when markets are bad, I think you don't try to be an economist and try to predict what will happen, right? It's not in your control, right? End of the day, you need one job, right? You're not trying to, let's say if India's economy is not growing at 12%, is growing at 7%, it's not going to impact your career. You just need only one job. You need one person to say yes, right? So just focus on your preparation and keep at it. I think that's what kind of my learning was, because my undergrad job search was very easy. I was from decent college. I got 2-3 opportunities in campus. But I think this kind of set a tone for my rest of my career, I would say, right? I think how to think about job search, what do I need to do? I became very, very particular about navigating my career, I think from that moment, right? So I think it was a great experience looking back, not a very great experience by then, right? So I would say just focus on what you need to do. Things will be okay. And this economic downturns keep coming, right? Every probably 5 years, 6 years, right? It's not going to be permanent, right? Tech is not going to go anywhere, right? Every industry is getting digitized. We need engineers. We need product managers. We need people who can actually build stuff, right? So there's nothing fundamentally wrong, right? And people don't need to be worried and then trying to do something which they're not good at, which is predicting where the economy will go. Instead, just staying focused on what you need to do will help.
Cycles, right?
Yeah, everything has cycles, right? I think, yeah.
Bad downturn.
Yeah. It can be a good excuse. I've seen a lot of people saying that, the economy is bad, that's why I could not do. I think, of course, if you want to use it that way, you can, but I think it's not going to help, right? So, I think nobody cares about you. The sympathy is not helpful, right? You need to do what you need to do. Yeah.
The comforting thought about all of this is that, if you do what you can do, what is in your control, you can prepare better, you can have better projects, you can become a better software developer. All of this is 100% within your control. Nobody else can take it away from you.
Yeah.
If you apply yourself, focus, have the discipline, do it, you can become that.
And I've seen it work also, right? Like I studied in a college called St. Joseph's Engineering College. You guys wouldn't have heard it, right? The way I got to know about people can apply for masters is that one of my batchmates who went to a very good high school essentially had that exposure. His sister was out there. He used to have a GRE book and kind of study. What is this? So he said, this is the thing that you need to crack if you want to go and do your master's abroad. So that kind of that small exposure, right? And so there are two things. One is exposure to saying what is there in the world. The second thing is your why you want to do, and the third thing is, do you have it? Can you essentially say you can do it and not feel sympathetic towards yourself? Rather, just keep on trying, right? Because you can't get everything that you want, but you can try for it, and eventually it can come up. Like I have some a lot of analogies, but it will kind of go into. So, and it kind of comes in cycles, right? Say, for example, my master's, I wasn't the topper in my undergrad. It was 7 GPA and whatnot. The guys in my undergrad, I'm a mechanical engineer, who applied to UW-Madison, Georgia Tech, those kind of universities got rejected, right? They were university toppers and whatnot. One simple thing was I did not apply for that thing. Fall of 2011. I kind of applied for German universities. Literally all 10 German universities rejected. And just before that, one of my friend suggested you can reach out to professors, and therefore you can get something out of that, right? And in German universities, I kind of reached to like 500, 600 professors. One professor replied back saying, "Hey, I have an internship opportunity at Audi in Ingolstadt. Do you want to take it up?" I was like, "Oh, the moon!" And he was like, "We can't pay that much. We can only pay you 2,000 euros per month." Like, this is dream. This is dream. I'm like, immediately, "Yes, please. What can I do?" And everything. So all the visa processing is coming. They're like, "You need B1 certificate level German skills." I was A1. All mechanical engineers learn German language, right? So I was A1, so I did not. I was like heartbroken, right? Like, oh shit, we are so close, right? But that experience, kind of when 6 months went away, did some internship, 2012 spring. At that point in time, there's like my girlfriend was in the US, and she's like, she was a duke. And she's like, "You either come now, or I need to find another dude."
That is the why.
That is the why.
Very clear why.
Why.
So luckily I picked, because applying to US university is like $100. I didn't have that much money. So I picked like 5 universities, then shortlisted 3, Ohio State, Georgia, and UW. Ohio was the least ranked, right? I get the first reject from that. I'm like, done. This is not happening. Georgia sends a waiting list. And UW, at UW, the brilliant thing is you just need to have a professor say, "Yes, I will take you as a graduate research assistant." A lot of people don't go through that route because it's tough to. I don't know who that guy is. If I send an email, will he reply back? But the 500 emails that I sent previously to German kind of gave me a confidence. Okay, we can crack this. Same 500 emails here, right? One guy replied saying, "Hey, your resume looks good, but I don't think you are the right guy for my research team. You should apply for this Engine Research Center." And that's where Sarang studied, right? "You need to apply there." I said, "I have applied everywhere. You are the only guy who at least replied. I want to work for you." His name is Bob Rowlands. Right? He was kind enough to reply back and say, "Okay, come in. You look interested." So, and what I've realized is this kind of repeats, right? This repeated when we wanted to get into the Y Combinator, right? Applied like 8, 9 times, got it in the 9th time. Same thing when we started building a company and whatnot. So I think over a period of time, What I've realized is what you guys say.
I think that muscle helps.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's not like your life doesn't end at your first job, right? It's like 50, 60 years, or at least 40 years of professional career. And therefore, what you guys say resonates so much.
I think that's why I told you, right? I think that 2008 experience actually helped me to be very particular about my career decisions, right? And I'm very confident I can, for example, when I say I want to go to kind of product management, like I know, like I applied for like 20 companies, right? Like similar to the 500 email story, right? So you have a playbook to kind of do, and then whatever you want to get, you can actually potentially get there. Yeah.
And there's this brilliant quote, right? A lot of good companies are built during recession, right? Your Airbnb, Stripes, right? And therefore, a lot of good professionals are built during this season because they go through that grind. Nothing is easy, and therefore it's tough. But when they go through it, they know that they can kind of figure out any tough situation, right? So that's one of the things that I wanted to kind of speak about. Just wanted to kind of delve deeper into some of the personal stuff you guys do, right? Like, Ajay, I need to kind of get into your farm, right? What was that? Where did that interest come from? How did you kind of
midlife crisis?
I don't know how it started. It started way before midlife. So I'm wondering what my life's duration could be, given that it started very early. But being in the US, a lot of free time outside of work. Got into gardening. Did it for 10 years there. We used to grow a lot of our own fruits and vegetables that were difficult to get in the market, right? And would grow pretty easily. And started with that. When we returned to India, did some terrace gardening work, and then this opportunity came up where I could buy some land. Grabbed the opportunity and barren land, started there, and it's been 5 years now.
Nice.
Growing a lot of things there. Yeah.
Well, what do you like about it?
It teaches you a lot of patience.
Okay.
You plant something like a coconut tree. It takes about 5 years to start fruiting, and the full yield will only come at year number 8. Until then, you have to keep doing whatever you need to do to take care of the coconut tree, right? And similarly, many other trees, right? So, trust the process. And then patience, and the same thing every day. And then the fruits of labor. Literally fruits of labor will be there. Also, I love being outdoors in nature.
There's amazing.
Yeah, so that also helps. Yeah.
So, anyway, apart from work, it kind of gives some clarity, right? Doing something.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I'm.
See, it helps a lot. See, the thing is, you feel responsible for many other things, and then some successes on the farm can translate to a better mindset. I don't want to say it's a huge life-changing experience, but some small things. Yeah, you never thought you could do this, and now you have, like I have more than 5,000 plants, 5,000 trees, and most of them will start fruiting very soon. It gives a
and
lot
starts from very, very little, right? Like
yeah,
you just need
it's like this small. Anyway, but that gives you some perspective of go long term, and just keep trust in the process.
Athena, what do you do? Only work.
I don't do much actually. Yeah, I go for some long walks. Yeah, that's pretty much I do outside of work, right? So I have a daughter. I spend some time with her, right? So I don't go deep in anything else.
Go deep in work. That helps us.
Yeah.
No, this is great. What I have seen is I played sport for a long period of time, right? Almost like 15 years. I did not understand it well when I was playing it regularly during my undergrad or school days. But after that, right, over the last 5-6 years, it kind of gives you very good mental clarity. And I say this to everyone, right? Like having something to do outside of your work or outside of whatever you primarily do, right? Like studying or whatnot, right? Because at sport, what I've realized is you face failure, right? You face failure so often that you kind of get acclimatized with failure, right? It's okay to fail, kind of thing. Because I think right now, not a lot of failure is being faced by people, and the first time you fail, you're like, all hell's break loose, right? You don't know what to do when you get rejected in your first job. You don't know. You think that, hey, I am very good at it. I should have got this job. Why did I not get this, kind of a thing, right? Sport kind of teaches some of that, to say, hey, okay, it's just a process, right? So yeah. And just one more additional thing, right? A lot of the people that I meet speak about, hey, the Facebooks, Googles, and those kind of companies, right? But there are, it's not that alone, right? It's not Flipkart, Udan, Uber, Ola, Swiggy, Zomato. It does not start there and end there, right? I mean, there are smaller companies, but there are also big, large companies also, right? Like, am I correct in that? What are those companies? Who are those companies? What do you see in that?
Yeah, if you just look at the job landscape, right, especially in India, of course, the big tech companies are there. Of course, the FANG companies, and you have Indian unicorns, top 4-5 are there, right? So I think outside of that, if you just look at the sheer number of opportunities, I think a lot of VC funded startups, right? We have like thousands of them. That's a big chunk of jobs out there, right? Those companies will be like 100 people, 200 people, 50 people, right? So they hire a good quality developers and they pay really well. And outside of that, the big chunk of opportunities actually come from the global captive centers, right? I think India hosts around, I think, 1,800 plus captive centers, right? So across industries, right? If you just look at banking, right, we have Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, right? If you just look at, let's say, manufacturing, you have Boeing, Airbus. Everyone has their tech centers in India, right? So even retail, you have Tesco, Walmart, Target. All those companies have, right? So all these companies look at India as a kind of their development center. Most of the companies, India is the largest development center outside of US. Right?
They're not doing N-3 now?
No, I think so.
Are they doing
it has
N?
changed. It has changed, right? So a lot of functions are owned out of India.
Okay.
Right, a lot of functions are owned out of India. Earlier, it was, for example, every team has a team in US and team in counterparts in India. Right now, there are certain products are actually owned out of India.
And therefore, the opportunities.
For example, I think I remember, right, in 2006-7, my friends used to work in Yahoo, right? And a lot of them actually, after a couple of years, they want to get transferred and go to the California office because they think the peers in California office are doing the good work and they don't get to do their work here, right? I think that feeling has definitely changed a lot, right? I think the people here in India and some of these companies are doing cutting edge work similar to their global counterparts, right? That has definitely changed over the years, right? And these companies employ, I think, more than 750K plus people in India, right? It's a large number, right? Yeah, and these companies are growing. If you look at last, I think 7-8 years, they're growing almost 10% CAGR, right? It's significantly large headcounts, right? Each companies have like 5,000 people, 6,000 people, like more than 1,000 people, a lot of companies, right? I think what has changed post-COVID is a lot of smaller companies started setting up office in India, right? I think for them, they're able to, because they got used to working remotely in COVID, right? And now they think it's possible. It's not completely remote. They have office in India, but for US people, it's again collaboration remotely. But I think they think it's possible, right? I think opportunities are actually immense there. That segment is growing a lot, right? I think even in this current market, while a lot of companies actually reduce their headcount in US, right? They're actually hiring in India, right? I think they think it's actually, I think even though India does similar work, I think cost-wise, it's almost like probably 3x lower for them, right? I think it's Indian salary is also catching up now, right? Now, salary is not the only reason, but still salaries are 3x lower here, right? For a similar work, similar talent, right? I think those companies are growing.
Just around that salary part of it, right? I know 2020 to 2022 probably was one of the peaks, peaks at which salaries were there. One of the things that we also hear around, right? Like, I expect 20 lakh package, I expect 15 lakh packages, I expect 10 lakh packages. What do you think about that? Was that the normal? And is that right now, is it a downturn right now and therefore it has gone down? Or this is normal, that was high, we have actually come back to the normal stage?
I think salaries are like real estate prices, right? I don't think it goes down, right? So, but I think the kind of hikes and the kind of opportunities people will get at that price point is, I would say, it's become normalized now, right? But still, good developers demand that kind of a premium in the market even today, right? I think entry level salaries have become a little normalized, right? I think probably 8 to 10 lakhs is still possible. It's not high salary today. I think companies have to pay to get a reasonable talent, right? For a fresher, I would say salaries are still the same, right? But I think expectations, the kind of interview rounds you have to go through, the kind of skills you need to possess to get those salaries has become a lot more stringent.
The 8 to 10 lakh roles, that was probably a little easier previously,
Little
is
easier,
still
yeah,
a little harder.
Yeah.
The number of opportunities are there. It's just the number of
expectations are actually higher, because I think earlier people won't come, right? So companies are okay to just dilute a little bit of quality and get somebody they think they can pick it up, right? So now that the supply is there, companies are willing to still pay, right? I think, and they expect a certain level of quality. Yeah.
Ajay?
Yeah, I mean, I have to echo a similar opinion. I mean, so many new startups and businesses are getting built. The appetite for developers is high. It is going to grow, continue to grow significantly. You don't have to be an economist to understand that, right? So many, these Indians are getting richer. They want to spend more money. More businesses will get built. Now, who's going to build those companies? You are going to need at least some number of software developers, along with all the other functions as well. So I feel quality is still missing in the supply side. You know, the graduates coming out of engineering colleges, the quality unfortunately continues to be low.
Yeah.
Great segue. You guys need to now deep dive into that aspect of it. What's happening, right? Like, we all went to engineering colleges. Does not matter tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. What's happening out there? Why is that not getting solved?
I think the curriculum was not kept up. Now many engineering colleges also have become deemed universities. Previously, it used to be one university and a lot of colleges affiliated to them. And that big college, the big university did not revise their curriculum fast enough. But when it comes to things like computer science, it's very hard to create curriculum because, first of all, it's so broad.
Interesting, right? You would assume it is not that hard, right? Like, so much is out there, open source. Shouldn't it be easy?
Things are changing.
Okay.
When I graduated in, for example, 2004, 2006, master's 2008, the kind of programming languages and the kind of code that we used to write then, the problems we had to solve are very different from what they're today. It's like no comparison.
I think fundamentally the problem is, I think it's ability to attract the good teachers. I think the problem lies there. I think there's enough spoken about this problem, right? I would say, I think this is no an excuse for anybody today, right? I think with the kind of exposure people have, right? I know it's a lot depends on the students' motivation. I don't think students are constrained today based on what their teacher can teach them. I think the quality of teachers is still a problem. We don't have an answer for it, right? Because I think the kind of salaries we have, the kind of respect we have for them in the society, I don't think we're able to attract the tier 1, top tier people into the teaching profession at a college level.
And it needs to be solved for masses. So that becomes, it's more of a societal.
It's a large problem, right? I think like the way we have probably solved for telephony access, I think we have to leapfrog this. Probably, I don't think we can solve the education system in the current form and shape. Probably we have to find a new form and shape of it.
Have you thought about it? What do you think it will be like? It will look like?
Yeah, I think so. Today, I think it has to be a lot more. Of course, we need a place for people to assemble and study, right? I don't think there's any doubt about it, right? So, I think the kind of people who can come and teach can be not just the residential professors. It could come from the industry. It could come from ecosystem, right? And I think there could be a stronger student-led communities who can drive innovation, right? I think it has to be a stronger community play plus experts coming in from outside and probably having really qualified, strong, few residential professors driving the show, right? So I think, I think there's a lot of challenges today. I think a lot of regulations around it. It's a little complicated problem to solve. I think.
So one of the things that I've thought about there is, if we need to solve this for a significantly large population of people, because almost 1 million people get into engineering alone, right? Yeah. Then it needs to be like, I'll say a kind of OYO for college ecosystem in that sense, right? The colleges own and run the place. The operating system for these colleges are provided by a platform which has really high quality content and the ability to deliver that content and the network of professionals to deliver that content at scale. I think that's one opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. I think which is what, like, for example, when I don't know, probably Indian government had UGC and AICT and all of that formed, I think they're probably supposed to be those platforms, or those supposed to be. I think there are a lot of challenges there in making it functional.
Yeah. No, agree.
See, that we constantly updated, and it's not just India. I don't think any country has solved this.
Yeah.
It's the same sentiment in the US. You might be going to the best colleges in the US, and the companies will still tell you, the companies in the US will still tell you that these graduates don't
I think it's slightly better.
It's a masters in the US is a different thing now, Ajay.
I think it's a perception.
No, say for example, if you go work in a research group of a professor, you kind of end up knowing or doing almost same to what industry does, right?
In some areas,
Some areas, it's not universally that.
If you think about things like machine learning and data analytics or AI,
Hmm.
the industry is far ahead.
Yeah, makes sense.
For multiple reasons. That's where the data is. Smart people go there and they have access to these things. They can iterate much faster. Very difficult to do it in a university.
And the ecosystem are very integrated. The university ecosystem and the companies are integrated. They run some research. I don't know. That is even
Little
that
bit.
is
No,
okay.
just a little bit. I don't think it appears that way. That's the perception.
Okay.
But I still feel that if you speak to an average hiring manager in the US, they will still tell you that there's such a huge shortage of talent and these people haven't learned anything in college. And
It's the same problem statement.
It's the same problem everywhere. Maybe quality of work is slightly.
Well, will that be is that problem not solvable at all? Like,
See, my unpopular opinion and first one today is quality education doesn't scale.
quality education doesn't
It
scale.
doesn't scale.
Okay.
It has to be personalized
Okay.
to a large extent. So you have to be with the student and challenging them to do what they are good at and encouraging them to go deeper and deeper there. And for that, you need a really good mentor. We've tried to solve for some of those things in Crio by getting a large network of mentors and encouraging you to have these regular mentor connects and understand what your strong point is so that you can go deeper and deeper in those particular areas. And then our tech team is here to support you to some extent there. That's one way to try and solve, and we'll see what the results are. Pretty happy with where we are today. But I think we can definitely improve.
Yeah.
As you saw, you realize, I can do this as well.
Like a lot of times when you start going deeper, right, then we go back and say, okay, yeah, some of the things should have been solved at school. We keep going back, right? So it becomes like where you start, right? It's an interconnected problem, right? For example, let's say somebody is not very disciplined, right? Somebody's work ethic is pretty bad, right? These things actually matter when somebody studies, right? And who solves that, right? Right? It becomes a parental care plus early education. It goes really. It never ends. It's too deep of a problem. Yeah. I'm sure. We should solve this, right? Just that we are not able to have one solution for it. Yeah.
Take a sliver and solve that. It's very hard to do at scale.
Great. Yeah. So we spoke a lot about tech, right? In India, outside India, opportunities present. Just want to kind of take a few things, right? What are the opportunities present if you want to get into tech? Ajay kind of touched into it, right? Say data science, ML, AI, full stack web development, front end, back end, AWS, cloud. Like, say, what are the opportunities if I'm a fresher getting out of college? How should I think about what my area of interest is and how should I proceed towards it? I'll kind of give examples, right? I'm a mechanical engineer, right? In mechanical engineering, we say if you're good at what we call as engineering graphics, we will have studied engineering. So we say design probably might be a good thing. If you have studied fluid dynamics, probably computational fluid dynamics, CFD analysis, that thing, strength of materials, FEA kind of roles, structural engineering kind of roles. So is there a way to kind of say, hey, okay, here's a small cheat sheet for you to think about your career, who can be a good backend developer?
Yeah, I would say don't bother, right?
Okay.
Right. I think I just had advising my cousin over the weekend during Pongal holidays. Let me repeat that, right? So, see, I think generally people get lost, especially in the beginning of the career. If you're in the final year of college or in the beginning of the career, right? Don't think too much about specializing in, let's say, I want to be an ML engineer. I wanted to be a should I be a backend developer? Should I be a front end developer? A lot of times I've seen people asking all these questions don't end up doing anything, right? So, right. So I would say be a good programmer. Right? Pick up any programming language. Be very very comfortable in any one programming language. Right? Get started with something. Right? I think if you have not joined the first company and I think try to join a good place. Right? A good company, good a company which gives you a development opportunity. Any language, it could be a backend developer role, it could be a full stack developer role, right? Don't try to do too much specialization, don't think too much about it without even knowing deep about it, right? I think being a good problem solver, being a good programmer is the base skill for you to do anything, right? I think don't get lost. Should I focus on security? Should I focus on, let's say, infrastructure engineering? Should I focus on SRE? Should I focus on, and a lot of people come and ask me, I don't want to do programming. How do I get into tech? Right. So, and people think they can be a QA engineer without knowing programming. Right. So, I think those days are kind of going. Right. If you want to be a meaningful role in tech, right, you need to be a good programmer. Right. And if you have some fear of programming, yeah, I think you just get rid of it. Right. You get used to it and you spend some time, whatever amount of hard work is required to put that and get that out of your way.
Can you quantify the amount of hard work required there?
I think someone is reasonable aptitude, right? Someone has gone through engineering, gone through any of the degree and passed it. I would say they can be a programmer if they spend, I think they can be a meaningful, let's say, programmer plus they can do some building work with some tech stack in 7-8 months. 7-8 months. Yeah, it would require 7-8 months of hard work, right? Initially, if you have not done any coding in college, if you're just starting, it may be overwhelming. But if you're very, very focused, 7-8 months is a good time where you can comfortable. You can say, I can build a decent, I know, let's say JavaScript as a programming language. I can build a reasonable front end. I know some basic frameworks there.
Is it how you built Crio? Is that how you thought about, because the program is structured in such a way that people can build a Flipkart kind of a platform, Uber Eats kind of a platform. What was the thought process in building a curriculum like that?
I think if you just look at Crio's curriculum, it's primarily kind of mimicking, we call it micro experience, right? I think the fundamental thought was a lot of us actually learned a lot when we joined our first job, right? I think a fundamental thought process was, can we create an learning experience similar to someone learning at work, right? I think from a learning pedagogy perspective, they call it flip learning, right? So you're thrown out a problem and you learn tools and technologies required to solve the problem, right? When you start, you'll be given a smaller problem, the problem complexity will increase, you'll keep learning, right? I think for someone to go absolutely zero to level, they can actually build something meaningful. They go through the journey of, let's say, 8 to 9 months, right? So, yeah, coming back to your question of specializations, I think, especially in computer science engineering, there are a lot of things people can do, right? People can focus on data engineering, they can focus on, let's say, ML engineering, they can be very, very focused backend developer, very focused front-end engineer, right? All those things can potentially happen once you have a bit more exposure, potentially even post your first job also.
Right? Usually after it's 3, 4, 5 years, even post that.
Probably after a couple of years, probably this is what you like most, you can actually specialize. But I think having a fundamental programming knowledge, at least one tech stack understanding is critical for everyone, right? I think I get this question a lot, especially for ML, right? So, can I be a data scientist, right? So, you are doing undergrad, right? You have not done some research, you have not done masters or PhD to know some of the algorithms really deeper to even go and build one, right? I think you can just be a developer, right? If you want to focus on ML engineering, if you want to build a lot of products using ML, or even if you want to become a kind of a data scientist, you can of course specialize later, right? You don't know programming, you just graduate out of undergrad school, right? becoming data scientist is not the path is possible, right? So people get generally lost with a lot of noise, right? I think being a good problem solver, being a good programmer is kind of essential for you to build any further paths in software engineering, I would say.
Okay. Okay.
I have to agree. The core systems knowledge, basic computer science, is very useful, much required skills.
Is good math a necessity?
No. For some roles, yes, maybe. If you're doing some very deep data analytics kind of work, like my first job, we were working on web page categorizers. You come into the office, you can't access social media websites. For example, in an office network, they don't want you to access social media websites. Now, who decides which website is a social media website? Like, you can take the URL and have a long list of them, but then people get creative. They post the same content on a different domain. You can't catch up. So you have to analyze page content and then figure out if this is a social media type of website. So when you're building algorithms to do this kind of detection and stuff like that, yes, math skills and all that become very, very important.
But not to start with.
Just having the ability to scrape a website, extract all the necessary elements, and store everything in a way that can then be analyzed for what type of website it is. Just this plumbing work itself involves a lot of systems related things that you need to do. And huge demand for people who can do that today in India.
Okay.
I have friends running AI startups, and they say, I just need someone who can write Java code reasonably well, or Python, because I have all this data coming in from so many places. I need to extract certain qualities of different types of data that I'm getting, merge all of them, put them in some place so that my research team can take care of it.
And that's what
a huge field.
That's what you hear also, no? Because that's what I hear. Good undergrad or good programming's. Huh?
Yeah, it's an excellent starting point. And many other people will tell you the same thing. Someone who wants to automate some infrastructure engineering work will tell you, I just need a good Python developer or a Java programmer who can do this for me. So having, like what Rathina was saying, right, some solid coding skills, deep coding skills in one programming language, you don't need 10. Pick one, learn that really well, because once you understand how this tech stack is being used to solve a particular problem, that knowledge is transferable to many other domains. You can then move on and become something else later. And you're going to be in the tech role for 35 years. You're going to work for 35 years. So don't be so particular about, I want to do exactly this now.
You never know.
You will do it in your life.
Tech stacks also will evolve, right? I think just being a general programmer, any language is okay. You don't know what will be required after 2 years.
Ajay, just touching base to our previous conversation, right? You worked in the US. What was the talent pool in the US at the time that you worked? And compare it with today. Is the talent pool equivalent, or are we, say previously we worked in N-3, N-2 kind of versions. Probably right now we are working in the same version, same functionalities, right? Or we own functions. Are the talent pool pretty much the same?
No, it's very different in the US for a few fundamental reasons. People who are coming there really want to be computer science engineers.
Okay.
People in India become computer science engineers and then figure out what they want to do in life. And it's expensive there. So if you're spending money or you're getting a professor to bring you and fund you and things like that, then they've already checked. The first level of intent check is already done. And so people who graduate from an engineering degree, they really want that engineering. Most of them, say 80% of them really want it. It's a small number. The local population, I think it's 3% or so that go into engineering related roles. So it's a lot of immigrants coming and filling up the universities. So they really want, and from all over the world, right? And they really want to do what they're doing. And so the talent pool self-selects for better quality of graduates. They really want, the degree and the jobs associated with that. Here it's different. In India, for better or worse, in the long term, I think it is for the better only.
Okay.
people go into engineering because they think that's where you can make a good amount of money. And you've seen somebody in your family or friends,
Succeed.
or they've seen, they've really risen up the social order, the social mobility has really improved because of a job in tech. And so they become engineers to only later figure out, actually, it's not my passion at all. So that factors into the talent pool. But that being said, there is still very good, competent software developers graduating from India.
And see, one of the things is our demographic dividend, right? Like, I think that's a significant advantage over probably the next 10 years. It might become a disadvantage if we don't harness them well and whatnot. But I think India being a developing country, I think the hunger is in general there with everybody. And there's a hunger that you see in that middle class and lower middle class families. We usually come from that hunger to kind of succeed and kind of move up the societal ladder is always there. And that is the only thing I think which will push all the education infrastructure and whatnot. Even if that is not there, just that hunger will kind of push people. So how do you think about is this, especially with this kind of demographic talent, with what we have done over the last 15 years in tech, will the next 10-15 years be India's decade?
I think there's definitely an opportunity, right? I'm cautiously optimistic about it, right? The reason I'm saying cautiously optimistic, of course, there's a huge advantage we have because of a demographic dividend, right? I think if you remember the stats right? So I think 2047 or 2050 is where we're peaking in terms of number of people who are working, right? I think number of people who are working as a percentage of total population, I think we're peaking in 2030. I think it's the highest in the world. I think 63% or something of the Indian population is going to be in working state in 2030, right? I think specifically, I think that's a problem to solve across industries, not just tech, right? I don't think tech is going to solve for leveraging the entire manpower. I think, of course, that's why India is focusing on manufacturing and a lot of other low-end services and everything, right? Specifically talking about tech, I think the groundwork which has been done for last 2 decades is definitely provides a solid foundation, right? I think if you just look at, if you just hear the stories of people in 80s and 90s before liberalization, right? They've done a really, really hard work of setting up Infosys and HCL and all of that, right? So I think today, I think it's a 300 billion plus export economy we have on IT services. It's amazing achievement, right? And if you look at last, I think 15-20 years of overall consumer tech boom, starting from Flipkart, all the SaaS companies out of India, right? I think we have done a great job in laying a great foundation, right? We have enough role models in the ecosystem, right? And we have a great access to the Valley ecosystem from here, right? I think we have all the right ingredients, right? I think with the talent depth we have and opportunities we have to export from here as well as solving for domestic consumption, we are sitting on a great opportunity, right? I think it's up to us to execute on this, right? I think it takes a lot of entrepreneurs, government, VC ecosystem, everyone to make it happen, right? I think great enabler for all of that is actually a talent, right? I would say, yeah, I think we have a lot of people, right? I think how do our people step up is very, very critical, right? So I know the top 5% is really good, top 10% is really good. I don't think that will be sufficient for us to create the dent, right? I think that's where I think people having drive to upskill themselves, right? People having drive to kind of go up from their personal level is going to play a huge role.
And it's not only you're learning till your 20s, right?
Yeah.
It's about continuous learning over a period of time.
Because I think someone being spending time, 10 years in, let's say, services company, right? I think the services company is not going to be the same, right? I think the pioneers have done what they are supposed to do, right? I think now, let's say, I think people are talking about AI services being a big opportunity. Right? Is India going to grab that or not is completely up to us, right? I think when IT services was really, really very complicated to solve, right? I think they've cracked it. I think we're kind of reaping the benefits of that.
Especially during those times, right? I don't know if you've read this. There's this book called TCS Story.
Yeah, they're saying they have to take a government approval to buy a laptop.
I think there's a computer, right? To buy one computer, they spent 1 year.
1 year, yeah. Right. And they could build a $300 billion economy out of those circumstances. I think it's definitely possible sitting on where we are today, right? So I'm very, very kind of bullish and cautiously optimistic, right? I think, yeah.
What can go wrong? Why will India lose this opportunity?
I think, see, there are two things, right? As I told, one is export opportunity, second is domestic consumption, right? Uh, from a domestic consumption perspective, I think our per capita income is not growing, right? I think even though we are growing as a GDP, right? I think if we just compare to US, I think India per capita income is almost like 30 times lesser. Right? I think it's less than $2,000 per year, right? Roughly around that, right? So I think Indian consumption story, I think there's nothing much you and me can do. I think probably at a government level, right? I think India has to continue the stable government, and they have to continue to invest in infrastructure. They have to continue to grow the economy. I think that is very critical for consumption story to play out, right? I think from export side, I think the only thing is I would say is the talent. Our talent has to catch up, right? And the products we are building has to be world class for us to win in the world market, right? So we can build SaaS products, we can sell to all other markets, but I think that has to win on its own merit, right? So we can't put a regulation control who has to buy my product, right? So I would say two things, right? As long as Indian consumption story is good enough, economy is kind of growing the way it's growing, and probably it has to grow slightly better. I think we're growing 6-7%, right? If you're able to grow at 10% for next 10 years, right? And if you're able to catch up on our ability to build world-class products, definitely I think we can own this decade.
Yeah, I think one of the things, at least in my mind, right, like there are things that we can manage to do. There are things that are not in our hands, and all of us together, right, if we kind of put our efforts together to kind of make sure that we build those opportunities. As an individual, if I'm a fresh undergrad coming out of computer science, right, rather than saying, hey, it's recession, I don't have jobs, figuring out what I need to do to get into the job, because I think the opportunities are always present. It's just about, are you willing to kind of put that hard work to grab it or not, right? Like, so yeah, Ajay.
See, is it going to be India's decade? I mean, the way it's positioned is it India's decade versus somebody else's decade versus? So it doesn't have to be like that. Is this a good decade for India? Is an easier question to answer, right? A lot of aspirations are there. People are now exposed thanks to cheap internet access. They see on YouTube how other people are living, how other countries are living. Previously, there was a poverty of aspiration. You don't even aspire for something larger, you want to limit what you even want to aspire. Today, that's not the case. Going back to my farm help, right? He wants an iPhone. He wants Bluetooth
Speakers.
He wants to celebrate his 3-year-old son's birthday with, his letters, those huge plastic balloons, and just like any other person, in the city would want to celebrate, and that's great. So aspiration is there. Now, what to meet that aspiration, are we going to grab everything that we have at our disposal in India and kind of build? That is the question. And I think I also tend to be cautiously optimistic itself, because see, growth is not inevitable. Growth is deliberate. You should want to grow, and you should do the things you need to do to grow. It's not inevitable. It won't just happen like that. So I feel the right people looking at the right problems, solving them with the right teams, and executing, rigorously, religiously, day in and day out, solving problems, making them better products, better quality. All of these things is required. It requires targeted focus from hundreds of individuals. And do we have those hundreds of individuals who are going to stick it out and actually build? That is the question. I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that hunger is there. Yeah. The know-how is there. Exposure is there.
Yeah, foundation is there.
Foundations are there. Yeah. The India stack is there, making so many things better. The government also is focused on, making ease of doing business better and better, So systems are there, platform is there, foundation is there. We have to execute.
Great. Yeah. I'm very optimistic. I think one of the points that I see is what we lacked was exposure, right? And once we have this exposure, I think that problem is solved right now. People are across all fields, right? People have examples to say, hey, okay, I want to be like that. Right? It can be a Western influence. It's okay, but it's still aspirational, and good people are Indianizing that Western influence, right? And essentially saying, I'll be Joe Rogan for India, right? I'll be someone else for India, right? And India itself is a big market, so it can still work, right? So great. Thank you so much for being in this first episode, all right? I'm sure I'll kind of bring you back and discuss more important stuff. Any final things that you guys want to say? It's okay if there is nothing. We'll cut that part.
I think so. It is great chatting, Surya, right? So I think overall, right? So I think we spent some time talking about, I think the path as an ecosystem, the path we have kind of come through, right? So as I was just telling before, right? I think we are sitting on a right foundation, right? So I think if you're able to leverage the talent depth we have, right? And if you're able to kind of execute, I think execution is the key word, right? I think I was just about to say, I think a lot of people getting inspired by watching YouTube and whatever, watching other people do, watching Twitter, right? I think the point Ajay made about growth is not inevitable, right? Growth has to be deliberate. I think as long as we can actually execute, and I think we have right aspirations, we have right foundations. I think we have a great future ahead, right? And that's what I would say.
Oh, great. We'll end it that high note. Thanks, Rathina. Thanks, Ajay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks all of you for watching this. If you like this, like, share, subscribe, and also do comment your thoughts. If you have anything you want us to cover over the next episodes, please put it in the comments as well. And it's a wrap in this In and Around World of Tech, episode 1. Thank you.